Well, Mr. Hill, I'd like to start from the very beginning and ask you about your childhood. Were the movies a big part of your life growing up?
Were they a big part? I think that I grew up in Texas, so you played high school football, you went to sports. My parents divorced when I was 10 years old. So, I had an older brother that played football. So, therefore, I played football. He got a scholarship. My older sister got a scholarship. So, it was kind of like one of those things that you think about you know, you've got to go to college. So, you got to get a football scholarship or
Yeah.
something. So, I did that. And I came back and started working in the summer doing summer musicals in the operas and stuff. So, we went to the movies. I remember growing up on Saturdays where you took the bottle caps in and you got to go to the movie theater, and that was great. So, so you always dream about the stuff, but you never give it. We're so far removed being in Texas growing up that it was in Hollywood was the
Yeah.
big famous thing. So then once I started doing stage work and concerts and musicals and building scenery, then I got my first chance to work on a film in the mid 70s. It's just on the crew, and I go, hey, this is pretty good stuff. The pay was good, and the opportunity to see these people in operation. And then I did a Chuck Norris film in the late 70s. And I said, this is what I think I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I just kept working film, working my way up in the art department. I did some of the other jobs, but then I said, I don't know if I want to be on the set all the time.
Hmm.
And grip, that's not so interesting to me. And electric, not carrying cable and lights. And now I think I'm going to go to the art department. I don't know if I took the easiest route or the best route or whatever. Looking back, you think, well, maybe I should have gone into the AD department, maybe be an assistant director, then move up. But I was fortunate enough to get hired as a lead man a lead man on Silkwood and Places in the Heart, and as a decorator moved up. And then when I got to work with Oliver Stone, when we did talk radio, it was like, well, Oliver's very difficult. He's going to be one of those guys that once he finally gets here, he'll decide if you stay on the crew or not, which I thought, wow, that's kind of weird. If I started on the show, why wouldn't I keep on the show? So I did talk radio, and we rolled right into Born on the 4th of July. So needless to say, Oliver might have been the biggest person that I'd worked with during the time. And then when the opportunity came, the next feature with Oliver was JFK, which was about, I think in late 89. It came out in 1990. And that was my first opportunity to really work on a big film. I was an art director on the film, and my relationship with Oliver was very good, where he came to me for a lot of I want this done or I want that done, even though I was only the art director, because he saw how I worked as a set decorator on Born on the 4th of July. And it's that time when I met Kevin. And, you think, well, how does an art director get in touch with an actor like a Kevin Costner? And it was funny because one of the stories that I remember looking back that we had a great cast, a big cast, and some of the actors were like, you're just crew, you're not anybody. I think Kevin heard that comment somebody made one time, and so at the end of that rehearsal day, Kevin came up and goes, well, I'm just going to go with the crew. So it made a point to the crew is as important as anybody. And we became friends on that show where I don't think we ever played golf on that show, but we might have. And then we went out a few times, and circulated with his friends and got involved in, like, we like sports. So it was a basketball playoff. So he'd say, hey, why don't you come over to my place and we'll watch the basketball game. So, I did, got to be friends with him and his family. And then, the show ended, and like 4 or 5 years went by, and then he was doing 𝙈𝙧𝙗. And then I got a call from some of his people and said, well, hey, if you can, why don't you come up and visit up in New Mexico? So, I thought, wow, how do you not? Kevin Costner asked me to come up and visit. And then when the same in 96, when we did Tin Cup, he did, and he knew I was a golfer. So it's like, hey, come on down to Houston and we'll play some golf and you can see all the stuff. So I thought, wow, that's pretty good, and I'm thinking, being a friend of Kevin, and it's like, I never used Kevin, and I never have, as like a ladder to get to where I needed to go. I hope that my reputation and everything made sense and got me to a point where I got hired because of that.
Yeah.
So then in 97, of course, I'd done like several Oliver Stone films by that time. I've done a couple of Sean Penn movies.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting known as like, oh, this is the guy that can work the tough directors. So, I went out to California when we did The Crossing Guard with Sean, and I tried to get into Union and they wouldn't let me. And that was about 92, I think, or 93, because I was in the Dallas Union.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in 97, I got a call from Kevin.
For the postman.
Right.
For
the postman. And I said, well, I'm not in the union in California. He goes, oh, you will be. So he and the Warner Brothers people got signed letters, and I got into union. And then that was my first really working directly with him as a director. Ida Random was the production designer. And, we played golf on weekends. We played probably 24 times.
And we was fresh off of Tin Cup, so he was like on top of his game pertaining to golfing, right?
Yeah. So we really had a good time, and we made the best of it. And he would, and I found that during that time it was great because, I've got him a captive audience for 4 or 5 hours on the golf course. So he'd say, no, hey, listen, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'd say, well, I'm not the designer, but it's Ida. Well, let Ida know what I want. And I said, well, that's a little sticky situation because, I'm giving her the direction but we got through that. And then
Ida had known him for a long time, right?
To say again?
Ida had known Kevin for a long time.
Yes, she did. 𝙈𝙧𝙗,
right?
Silverado. So they had a long-standing relationship.
Yeah, a long-standing relationship, right? I want to get into all of your working relationship with Kevin through the years. A bit later on, I have a few questions I want to ask you.
No problem.
Get into that, I would like to ask you if you recall what the very first movie you saw was and what kind of emotions it elicited in you.
Well, I think you mean as far as visually saw the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that I think growing up, I don't really have one single movie that you see I remember Old Yeller, and I remember some of those, and I remember back in the days of watching some of the early Westerns, the Clint Eastwood Westerns, and, you think about it and you think, wow, where did they make that movie? And then, when I went over to Europe, when I did Jack Ryan, they go, well, yeah, we're in Spain. I'm going like, wow, that's it, and so it's an important thing that I think taking some of those films like that the natural films, we watch more TV growing up than films. because it was just such a challenge for us to get to the theater with my mother working and us 5 kids. And you know, you don't think that you really have a knack for it, you know, because you didn't grow up around it. You know, I went to college with a management and economics degree, minored in finance and real estate. So, you know, I have a business brain. So it was always, it's always like, to me, is a proving point, you know, when you get to some of these movies. And then you think, as you start, you think, boy, it'd be good to do a film like that, or some natural film. I haven't really been drawn to the Star Wars.
Yeah,
you know,
the special effects driven films, right?
No, it's not. And I think that I think natural films, to me, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and
love it.
Some of those like that just go that resonate with you, the Westerns. But I think that was a big thing. And of course, you know, The Godfather many years ago. And then you think, wow, you look back and you go, wow, I could have done that. Or, hey, it was an opportunity. You know, I've had my agent and them say, well, who would you like to work with? You know, I think through my career, I've been able to work with a
really great
variety of directors. I think I pride myself on the different genres that I work, that I can say, when someone says you can't do this, you can't do that, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that's what drove me to the film, because it was something outside of a norm for me. Yeah. Nobody in my family had done it. It wasn't like, you know, it's almost like I had to earn everything on my own. Yeah. And I still think today, with 40-something years experience, I still go out to prove myself that I can do something, or I just don't think in the vocabulary there's a word that I can't. You know, and I think that's where sometimes Kevin says, you know, I appreciate you because you didn't say no, or you just go, okay, we'll change it.
Let's figure something else out, right?
Yeah.
What was it specifically about the production designing that drew you to this very specific craft?
Well, I think that the way I came about it was a little bit different, because I didn't come from a drawing background. Okay. Because you always heard that this person can do and this person can do. And Bruno Ribeo, who I worked on Born on 4th of July and those things, he could like draw the Taj Mahal just sitting there. And I'm going, well, I can't do that. Yeah. You know, that's not part of my brain. That I can visually look at it, tell you if it's right, or tell you what needs to be adjusted, but I'm not the drawing production designer, which in a sense, in my mind, held me up in a sense that, you know, I thought I was a good decorator. I did some pretty good shows as a decorator. Yeah. And then you know, I go, well, I can do that. I can pick furniture and I can lay this out. And, you know, I did some, you know, construction when I grew up. When I graduated from college, I did some home building construction. And then when I did some stuff in the union building stage sets. So I can do that. And I have that construction sense, and I have that knowledge, and I have that budgeting. But then, you know, it's like the people that worked under me goes, well, when are you going to move up from set decorator to art director? You know, because they all wanted to move up. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, I'm pretty good because I'm getting every set decorator job that I want. Yeah. So then I move up to art director, and then you realize, wow, now I got to find somebody as good as what I thought I was as my decorator, because I don't have the time to put into it. Okay. And then as I grew up in it, I would always make sure that I would share all the information that I had, or where I could get something, or those things. And people would always say, wow, are you afraid that they're going to get your job? I said, well, you know what? If they find somebody that's better than me, they should hire them. If that person's better than me, then he deserves a job over me. So that's what's always driven in my mind as I moved up. So then when I moved up on, like on JFK, I moved up as a art director. And then I found Oliver coming to me, even on Born on 4th of July, coming to me and as a decorator. And it was like, but I'm just a decorator. No, but you get stuff done.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not like you're always there early and you're always there late. And I can count on you to, if I tell you at the end of the day, I need this or I need that, then it gets done. Yeah. So I think that through the years has kept me in the sense that I deserve to be, say, a designer. And then when you become the designer, then you go, and the designer today, to me, seems a little bit different than what it was when I first started, where you mainly dealt with the art.
All right.
And dealing with that, now you're dealing with the personalities, the production manager, the producers, the actors, or the directors, and or the writers, and you're keeping that mix together, holding that piece together. And I think that's my background that brought me up to that. And then hiring the right people and communicating what needs to be done is a big part of my job today, I feel.
You were mentioning working as an art director with Oliver Stone on JFK, and that makes me wonder, how did you guys go about finding the artistic vision for that movie and elicit the paranoid mood that the film evokes?
Say that one more time.
And find the paranoid mood that the whole story evokes.
Like on JFK.
Yeah.
I was in the 5th grade when he was assassinated. I remember that day like it was yesterday, that we were all sitting down in our classroom. We were watching the footage of everything.
Yeah.
And then when that came around, I mean, it was a sad time for the country, but it was really sad for Texas, because it was like, look what Texas did.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, wait, whoa, the guy's not even from Texas.
Yeah.
He happened to be there. And then, so I thought that the opportunity to do JFK, having grown up in the town, was really meaningful to me.
Yeah.
The research that I did, like looking at the photographs, we were able to get all the films, the Zapruder film and all that. And then we took individual slides of each film, pieced the stuff together, went down to Dealey Plaza, trimmed the trees exactly what it looked like from this angle, put the sign in at this angle, everything to match, put stuff where people would stand. And so we recreated that whole thing. And of course, working with Oliver Stone, you've got all kinds of people that come out of the woodworks. We had someone that knew the Warren Commission left and right, a researcher that worked in my office. And so before anybody could ever speak to Oliver about what they thought happened or what they knew or didn't know, then they basically would run it through my office. So now I'm learning all kinds of background information. I'm learning about the secret society of the CIA that did this, or they did this back in the day, and they overthrew Batista and put Castro in, and what we did in Vietnam. It got to a point where you just go, I don't need to know any of that.
It was 2
I'm
weeks,
working.
right?
I'm working on this film, so I think that Bob Richardson, the director of photography, was phenomenal. Very difficult, tough guy to work with, but he and I developed a good relationship through the years, knowing how he was going to shoot certain things, the film stock, the 8mm, the 16mm, desaturated color, full 35. So, you learned a lot of that stuff. And then, where I learned it on the backside of his script, where the page turns, he would have it all written out there exactly how he planned and what he planned on how to shoot it, which made me like going, oh, well, I need to do that on what I'm doing, because we have to know where we stand on that stuff.
Yeah. So it was
So
a learning curve for you still.
to that degree,
Yeah.
Oliver Stone was probably the toughest director that I've ever worked for. When you finished one of his films, he sucked every bit of energy out of you.
Wow.
But then you also made sure that you did it right. And like, you had to think about it. You had to read these books that related to the story.
Yeah.
So that basically you would have the knowledge that he has going in. And that's where I've learned a lot of my research and the in-depth thing, that not anything goes on the set that's never been, don't think that's not going to be seen. Don't think that it's unimportant.
Yeah.
Because when I did Any Given Sunday with him, I came on later because I replaced the designer, quit, and we had like a Vince Lombardi at his house. There was probably 20 to 30 signed pictures on the wall of famous football players with him and all that. And then he walked right up and found one that didn't have a signature on it. And it was like, how could that even be on my wall? He would have never put anything up, and it's like, oh boy, did I learned. So that to me was one of the biggest stepping stones, of learning from Michael Hausman, the producer AD from New York that I did Dominic and Eugene, Silkwood, Places in the Heart, House of Games, Things Change. Those films with him, every dollar goes on the screen.
Yeah.
So you look back and you see what those people brought to you and what made you open your eyes to. He's a financial guy that wants to make sure that all the money's gone to the right place.
Yes.
And it's not wasted. And we make the balance of the film. I worked on when I did Dominic Eugene, one of his guys moved up to producer. And I think that we did it for $1 million less than what the budget was.
Wow.
And the studio said, wow, congratulations. Just think of the movie, what it would look like if we would have spent $1 million that we budgeted. So, you think you win in one way, but then you lose. And so you've got to make sure that whatever you're doing is the right direction and the right way to go about it.
Yeah.
So I think the mood, you're talking about the mood and how it got. I think just the way that we approach the film and the way Oliver works with the actors, everybody had a sense of where we came from on the film, and it wasn't a happy time.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your very first meeting with Kevin was like?
You mean it's just when I first met him?
Yeah, when you first met him.
Oh, well, I thought he was, it's like untouchable. You know what I mean? It's like you're just a little person that's standing nearby. You're not one of the head people. And it was a matter of, I think, him being as an actor, the actors that really have it together, their heads on a swivel, they're watching who's doing what, they're watching who the director's speaking to and who's making things happen. And I think that's where I think that Kevin recognized, here, this guy from Texas that hadn't done any big Hollywood films, and so to speak. And I think that's, and then it was like, hey, you want to come to dinner? And I'm going, why, he's asking me. And I remember when we left Dallas, and then we ended up about 10 weeks down in New Orleans, and now he's in a different atmosphere. And then it was like, hey, listen, we're going to do this. Why don't you come to this? And why don't you come over here for this? We're going to go to such, and he included me and stuff. So then it was still like you don't take anything for granted at that point, because now you're also a little bit crossing the line with, now you're going, Oliver's not going to getting invited to those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now you don't want to let the director know that you become friends with the actor. Yeah. I remember when we did Born on the 4th of July, and Tom Cruise played the role. And then, like we needed like high school wrestling pictures and all the stuff that he did in high school. And I said, Oliver, we need to put it, well, good luck. And I thought, good luck? What does that mean? So then, I got to Tom Cruise one day, and I said, hey, listen, I'm the decorator, by the way, on the show. And I've got to decorate your house and your bedroom. And so I just wanted to put some stuff in there. And he was a wrestler in high school, and he did this and that. And so I'd like to stage some photographs with you in it.
Yeah.
So, and then he goes, okay, well, we'll set it up. And so we set it up, did the photograph, and that was when the camera batteries, you had to charge them, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember we were doing a headlock scene, and I'm shooting some close-ups of Tom. I'm waiting for the flash to come back, all that. And it was like, hey, Derek, let me just tell you, in the future, when you ask someone like me to do a photo shoot, make sure you got fresh batteries, make sure you're all prepared, so that's thing. So then I get onto the set, and Oliver walks in and looks at the set, and it's like, how'd you get these pictures? I said, I asked him. You asked Tom Cruise for pictures in the photo shoot. I said, yeah, you told me to do what I could. So through the years, it's kind of like, I'm not afraid to go to these people, because I'm coming with a purpose that'll help them, help the film be better, not just to say, oh, I did this with Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
I did this with Kevin Costner. And so I've always prided myself in that, and that's where I've got the wide variety, where they don't really call my agent, they just call me, and because they know I'm like a decision maker.
Yeah, you make the decisions. You don't need the middleman, right?
No.
In '97, you worked on what I consider to be an unfairly overlooked film, The Postman, which was Kevin's second directorial effort. What did you guys do to achieve the post-atomic / Western look that the story called for?
Well, I think that one of the big things that Kevin was very specific about the looks that he wanted. We scouted multiple times, took many photographs. First time I'd worked with Ida, and of course she'd had a relationship with Kevin previous of working several films with her, so they were friends in a sense. And then I go into the situation where I'm just trying to make things exact. I got, one of the things I learned with Oliver, I write everything down. I carry a book with me, and if the guy says it, that's probably what we're going to. And Kevin is one of those guys that is like, if he's got it in his mind how he wants to shoot something, and we always do exactly what he's saying, you know, and it was be like we're scouting these perfect locations, and it was be like we're going like, and my famous line always been when I'm working with Kevin and I'm filming stuff, I'll say, again, we're scouting today and such, and we're walking where no man has ever walked. Because he's basically going to go find that angle or find that place that works perfect for him. So I think the place that we made in Arizona, which the mine,
that was terrific.
I mean, that thing was monstrous set, and it was over. You know, it's like you just keep decorating. And I had a decorator that I'd worked with, and that Ida knew, and he did this job, Ron Reese, and you know, that walking across those fields where he was in the tattered clothes, and the Anastasia building at Medellin Falls, Washington, where we built on that dam where the water flowed, and you're wet all day long. For those guys were months. And then on that show where I would mainly work the sets, and Ida would go and do, you know, the advanced stuff, and Kevin would say, no, that's not what I want. I want this. I need this. I want this like this. So that's where I learned that listening to Kevin, he doesn't really forget. You know, it's like when I went there and we were going to shoot that billboard that time, and I said to the construction guy, is this thing set in the ground like that? He goes, yeah. I said, this is all wrong. I said, we're going to have to move it. Goes, we're not moving it. I said, oh, yes, we are. And we adjusted it because he had it, the light was a certain way. And then when we built the town in Bend, Oregon, where the well was in the center and the buildings were around, and we walked around, when we talked about that, he was very specific that I want to be able to see at every time when I get in between a building, I want to be able to see that center area. Well, this is like months before we shot it, you know, and at that point, because I'm just the art director, I'm not saying, well, what, Kevin, why are we doing that? You know, I just go, okay. So then I was like with the shooting crew, and Ida built the set. And again, I showed up, and, you know, it's like, no, don't go. Ida knows what we're doing and everything. I said, okay, all right. So I went there and checked it out before we started on Monday. And I go, oh my gosh, this isn't where he wanted the buildings. And I said again to the construction guy, that hey, can we move some of these buildings? And it's like, I don't think so. I said, well, we're going to move them the way he wants it. So it was at that point that they basically figured out Derek is a guy that's going to move it and get it the way I want. So I think that was the turning point probably on that show, that Kevin realized that I was listening, paying attention to everything he said and what he needed for the film without like asking the 50 questions about how come this or that. But I thought, in my mind, I thought that The Postman was a better film than was projected. You know, what the audience said. I think we lived a little bit with Waterworld, and then people would say, "Oh, this is like Dirt World now."
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I think that it's so overlooked, but some of his movies, I believe, have the tendency of like people catch up to them, like in years down the line. So maybe they're not immediate. They don't get them immediately, right? When they
no, but it comes
but,
back. It has a tendency to come back, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. And the Postman, I love it. I mean, I just love it. I mean, the epic quality of the story, the locations. I mean, it's just terrific. I mean, it's one of my favorites. Could you talk a bit about how the Hatfields and McCoys project find its way to you, and what type of research you did do on that? Because it's spanned a lot of years, pre and post Civil War.
So the one guy that Leslie Greif was the producer, and I'd done a couple of projects for him before. I did Keys to Tulsa, and I did Walker, Texas Ranger with him. So I knew him. He was putting the project together. So he contacted me and said, we're going to do this film, Hatfields McCoys, and we're going to shoot it in Romania. And I was like, in Romania? You know, and by then I don't think I hadn't worked on that side of the world at all. So, you know, I did as much research as I could, and I went over and scouted. And I think I had 9 weeks to work on, you know, get the sets built. And this was a film with Kevin Reynolds directing. And so now I already know the relationship a little bit between Kevin, the two Kevins, and you know, I was careful in that to make sure that, you know, I'm giving my attention to the director and not the actor, who was also a producer on the film. So it's a difficult thing. And I think Kevin didn't start until like the second week when we did the Civil War battle scene. And so that we would already set up in Bucharest, and we were now going to move up north to the area where we built his cabin.
Oh yeah.
And so you know, that was we did that up there first, and then we moved down to do the battlefield stuff. But I always do extensive research. Of course, the internet's really great today. You know, it used to, it's like my wife keeps asking me, what are we doing with all these books that you have? Because I used to buy tons of books, and I got boxes and boxes and shelves and stuff. And it's now I rely on the internet. And I just sit there and Google stuff left and right, you know, and pull these images, and then I put them in folders and do that stuff. And then, you know, the main thing that I wanted to do is make sure that I captured the West Virginia look and how, you know, people were going, but I don't understand. You did Hatfields McCoys in Romania. I said, yeah, but we didn't have any telephone poles to deal with. We didn't have any of the other stuff, the electricity, which is prevalent in the United States. And I think that a lot of the directors prefer natural stuff rather than visual effects stuff. So, and then, you know, Oliver was that way. He just needed to see it and feel it before he basically can go, oh, trust me, over there is whatever you're be.
So you're currently knee-deep in production on Kevin's fourth directorial project, which is the epic 4-part Western saga Horizon. The story spans 15 years, pre and post Civil War, and the expansion and settlement of the American West. I would like to know what the process to find the Horizon look was, because I know that Kevin is a stickler for accuracy.
Yeah.
And what Kevin was looking to attain in terms of style for Horizon.
The first time that it was about 2002 is when that first came to me, the script. And so I had the script and did some breakdown, did some research. And in 2004 or 5, we scouted some locations. I sent some people out location scouting in Utah. at the time. And then it just kind of dropped, and Kevin had something else. And then in 2016, he called me again, and we were going to do Horizon then. And we went to New Mexico, and we scouted for about 8 days in New Mexico. And we kind of did an illustration. We did about 10-minute sizzle reel to present to the studios and everything about the look and everything. And then something else came up, and it got put on the back burner. And then when he called me in January of 2022, and then he said, "Okay, we're ready to go."
Awesome.
And I said, "Well, I'm doing Jack Ryan in Europe until like May or June." And then they go, "Well, okay." And so then I didn't hear from him. And, I kept saying to the Jack Ryan people, I maybe have to leave here before long, to go do Kevin's thing. And then I find out through my agent that they hired someone that the DP had worked with. And then he lasted I didn't realize it, but he lasted about 3 weeks. And then Kevin went with Jeffrey Beecroft, who did Dance with the Wolves with him, Message in a Bottle, and Bodyguard. So then when I came back first week of June, I got a call from Leslie Greif, his producer, and said, "Hey, Derek, looks like I want you to do the film The Grey House. Kevin's producer on it. We're going to shoot in Romania. It's Civil War. It's about 3 ladies, going on." And he goes, I said, "Well, okay, what happened to Horizon?" "Well, Beecroft's doing it." I said, "Oh, okay, no problem." That was like on a Friday. Okay. And then, so I went, "No problem. I'm going to take some time off because I've been working a lot." And then Tuesday, I got a call from the producer and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to my doctor's appointments. I'm getting caught up on my life."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, Kevin fired Beecroft and wants you to do the film." I said, "Well, I already said I couldn't do it because I needed time off." And he goes, "Well, that's great. I'm just letting you know he's going to be calling you in just a little bit. So be prepared." So he called and he said, "Look, this film was always meant for you. You and I have always talked about doing this film. And I think that I really want you to do this film. And I think you and I are on the same page as far as what we want to do. And so I need you to come." So I went up and looked at the locations that they'd chosen to date. And there no illustrations or drawings or anything had been approved. And we're like, I think 6.5 weeks away from shooting.
Wow.
So I fly to Montana and meet with Kevin while he's doing Yellowstone for 3 days, and then fly back and then start building the river, and then building the town, and then designing the town up in the mountains that he wanted. And then we talked about specifics and the locations being completely different. He liked the fact that, the area that we were going to shoot the town was a Western area from back in the day. So I think it was like one of those things that, Kevin wants to shoot where they shot a John Wayne thing many years ago. So it was like a lot of catching up to do, and a lot of the time to like try to get it as right as we could. And until we built the mountain town, I don't think I ever caught my breath, And then it was like, this is really good, more than I could ever imagined, Then it was like, but can we have this? Can we have this? So you're trying, you're going by, because I didn't get a lot of the prep time with him, like Kevin and I, a lot of the stuff, illustration, we'll get an illustration done to my liking, and I'll send it to Kevin, and then he'll make some changes, and we'll make adjustments, and then he has the illustration to go by, and then that's our communication on the whole project that we've done. More so on Horizon 2 because I had the gal that I'd worked with, and now I've got my people instead of inheriting the people that were already on the show. That you go, well, you've got to. You can't get rid of these people because they at least know what's been going on for 2 or 3 months. And so we had some personnel changes that we made during feature one and then after feature one. I'm proud of what we've done to date, but with Kevin, and we're only halfway done.
Yeah, I know. What would you say you have learned about your own craft by working with Kevin all of these years?
I think that what I've learned that you find, because there's other people involved in like drawing or like a construction guy or an art director who goes, no, I think this is it, and then you go, well, oh, okay, let's go that way. And then what you originally thought was right turns out to be what Kevin was really thinking. So then you go in there and then you go, oh, well, okay, well, I'll make that change. And you say to yourself, I should have gone with what I believed then, that really to trust my thoughts from the beginning, especially if I've had more time with Kevin than anybody else. And that's where a lot of the stuff comes from is it's like when we did Hatfields and McCoys, he won the Emmy for that. And then he came up and, I was at the Emmys and he goes, hey, Derek, you really did good. I go, yeah, okay, thanks. And then he grabbed my arm. He goes, no, you really did good. Be proud of what you've done. You know what I mean? Because it's like, then he gets your attention. Because, everybody goes, hey, it's a good job. You're going to be on all my movies, and you never hear from him again.
Yeah.
I mean, like one movie I did, the first Pirates of the Caribbean. And it was like I started out as a supervising art director. They had an English designer. He wasn't available for the first 4 weeks. Then he came back and worked about 2 months and then quit. But yet he got the credit for the film. I worked 11 months. And so it's a blow to yourself.
Yeah.
That you did the show, but you don't get the credit for it. And then no one really realizes you put in the time, the hours, and your whole life in that. And that's where I jumped back in and did TV for a while. That's when I met the Russo brothers, and then I've been working off and on with them through the years. And now it's like the Jack Ryan thing came around because of Into the Wild.
Oh,
the
yeah,
producer Into the Wild, yeah. And so, and then 2 directors, a director-producer that did season 1 and a director-producer that did season 2, I'd worked with before. And they had problems with the designers not being strong enough and stand up to what needed to be done. And it was so funny because I got a call from my agent, said, you have the job, Jack Ryan. I said, I hadn't even interviewed. And they go, there, your reputation speaks for itself.
You don't need to interview.
Yeah.
You have worked with so many talented filmmakers throughout your career. Oliver Stone, Kevin Costner, Sean Penn, and I could go on and on and on. What do you think all of these people have in common?
I think their drive and passion for the film that's not really looking at anybody else. I mean, Sean Penn, everybody is like, you heard all the rumors about him and everything. He's the most, he's so focused on what he's doing that people over here on the outside don't understand. I worked with him when he was the director on like 3 or 4 times, and when he was just an actor on Hurley Burley.
Oh, yeah.
And then you realize it's not Sean Penn. It's that guy. It's that character.
The character.
It's like Dead Man Walking. He's not Sean Penn coming up to talk to 𝙃𝙗𝙀. He wouldn't talk to 𝙃𝙗𝙀 as that guy.
Yeah.
And so once you learn that about like Sean Penn and the passion and the thing with Antoine Fuqua, it went like this. You're Oliver Stone's guy. You're my guy.
Awesome.
And he goes, if you can deal with him, then you're going to be fine with me. And he's another tough guy that goes perfection and is all in. And, you know, my wife would say, you two guys need to lighten up. People are scared to death of you. Well, I'm as, when those kind of things, I'm not in to be the social butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like in it to listen to exactly what they say and then take that vision to the screen.
And get the job done, right?
Yeah, so I'm not like a social guy where they go, man, he's mad all the time. I go, yeah, I'm just
focused.
Like with Kevin, when you go out on the job, you go, even though he's seen photos, he might not have been there before you got the job done. So then it's like, don't talk to me. I want to listen. I want to, you know, move that post or move that bench or something in the window or this and that. And so more so on this horizon because he has such specific looks. And then he comes back later and he goes, hey, did you see that? Did you see what? Did you see what? You know, hey, I shot your town. You know, I'm going like, that's your town. You know, but he means it right directly to me.
Yeah.
And I go to my crew and I thank my crew and I say, hey, I'm passing this on from Kevin. He loves the set. He loves what we've done. Thank you for all the details that you put into it. Because I realize that I'm not there as a sole person, that I have the army behind me. And it's like, you know, somebody said, well, how do you stand to work with a guy? And my guy that's been with me 20 years, the art director, said, well, as long as you do exactly what he asks,
you're fine. You're
fine. And don't ever lie to him because he's going to find out that you lied. And that's the worst thing because I don't do that to those guys. If I make a mistake with these guys that you're afraid of, you know, like not afraid of, but Kevin and people you respect, I own up to the mistake. Hey, I got it wrong. And even if my crew does something that wasn't what we were thinking, I don't say, well, that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
I said, well, we can fix it.
Yeah.
We can fix it.
Exactly.
And Kevin understands that, and that's where we go. And, you know, we laid out a town on one of these feature two, and it was like, well, I think this is the best layout. And it was like huge, like 4 football fields set. And I go, well, I think I laid it out the way you and I kind of talked about it. Well, let's adjust. So they go, move those over there, move this over there. I said, now, okay, that's great. Let's go over there. Let's move that, move this, move that, move this. And so we spent about 2.5 hours. We moved stuff all around, and in the car on the way back, he made a comment that said, hey, thanks for bearing with me and making adjustments to whatever we wanted. I know it's probably close to what you had, but I had to get it in my mind, in my vision of how it works. And I think that that's where we work as a team because we bounce back and forth. And I'm not afraid to go put what I thought out there and have Kevin say, hey, it works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, then let's make an adjustment to it.
Yeah, it's just,
and that's where I don't decide of who I'm working for.
Yeah. Very last question, Mr. Hill. I'm sorry to have taken up so much of your time.
No, not a problem.
What are some of your fondest memories that you have of working with Kevin and just being friends with him? And, you know, just stuff is said or done that will always stay with you.
I think that the I mean, I think when we did the Postman, the playing the golf and doing the stuff like that, and then it's like, you know, you go into the golf shop. I don't know if you're a golfer or not, you
I'm
know,
not.
but you know, we'd say, you know, they'd say, I'd ask the crew, you know, where is the toughest place to get on there? Oh, you'll never get on this course. And then, you know, you get on the phone, you go, hey, listen, I'm in town doing the film, The Postman with Kevin Costner, and he would like to know if we could play golf for 4 of us on Sunday. Sure, what time would you like to play? You know, so it was always that kind of stuff. I remember when we were in Arizona on that film, and it was spring training baseball. And then we ran across some of the players at one of the restaurants or whatever that we went to. And then it was like, hey, Kevin, why don't you come out and play in the preseason game with us, batting practice and all that stuff. And then it was like Dusty Baker was the coach, I remember. And then so I went by, picked him up, got him there and everything. And I'm sitting in the stands, you know, and then Dusty Baker hollers for me to come down to the field. I go, what would I come down to the field for? And it's like, hey, just because you brought him doesn't mean you're not part of us. You know, sit on the bench with us. So the things that the places that you go, the people that you see and you meet will always be important memories in my life that I'll never forget. You know, and it's like, you know, he and I communicate quite regular and text when I need him, and I try not to bother him when, you know, he's got so many things going on. But those memories of and being asked back, you know what I mean? Because JFK was one thing, then you do the Postman, then you do Hatfields McCoys, and then you go, you know, you're only as good as your last. I always go by your last day of your last week. And it's like, look, he made changes with Beecroft. He could make a change with me.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's always like, it keeps me young in a sense, and young thinking, and on top of my game. So that's the important thing to me. That overall, I have the relationship that is friends and coworker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill, for having taken the time to do this. I hope you've enjoyed the questions.
Well, I hope I answered everything that you were looking for.
You absolutely did.